By the Montana Television Network. This is the noon news from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us to start your week. I'm Aja Goare. The Trump administration expelled 60 Russian diplomats and ordered Russia's consulate in Seattle to close. The decision comes in response to the nerve agent attack on a Russian ex-spy and his daughter in Britain. 14 members of the European Union announced similar measures, and Russia says the decisions will lead to confrontation. CBS's Kenneth Craig has more.
The White House is kicking out dozens of Russian diplomats and closing the Russian consulate in Seattle. In a statement, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says the move comes in response to Russia's use of a military-grade chemical weapon on the soil of the United Kingdom. On Friday, specialists in Britain removed the bench where a former Russian spy and his daughter were found unconscious earlier this month. The poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter also prompted 14 members of the European Union to announce similar expulsions Monday.
Further expulsions within the common EU framework are not to be excluded in the coming days.
Senior Trump administration officials say all 60 Russians were spies working in the U.S. under diplomatic cover, including a dozen at Russia's mission to the United Nations.
Britain's ambassador to the United Nations applauded the expulsions.
It's very welcome that our allies have shown such solidarity.
Russia denies being behind the poisoning. Its foreign ministry says it views the expulsions as an unfriendly act and is planning to respond. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, the United Nations.
White House officials say the president closed the Seattle consulate because it's near a U.S. Navy base. Meanwhile, authorities in Russia have launched a criminal investigation into a fire at a shopping mall that killed at least 64 people. Many of the victims are children. Witnesses say the fire alarms didn't work when the blaze broke out Sunday night on the first weekend of a school break. Russia's state news agency reports the fire may have started in a foam rubber trampoline in a playroom. Some victims were found inside a movie theater of the mall. Facebook now under investigation by the Federal Trade Commission for its data practices. The FTC says it's investigating privacy concerns that have arisen from the Cambridge Analytica scandal. That data firm has ties to President Trump's campaign and reportedly accessed information from about 50 million Facebook users without their knowledge. Facebook stock dropped 5% today after falling 14% last week as the scandal unfolded. Here in Montana, Great Falls police have yet to release the name of last week's murder victim, but the man's family confirmed his identity to MTN News. A GoFundMe account is set up in honor of Lloyd Goudry. His family says he is the victim of senseless violence, adding that Goudry died just one day before his 45th birthday. Police were called to the area of 16th Street near 3rd Avenue South last week for a report of a body in the road. 2 people took the man to the hospital where he was then pronounced dead. Investigators believe the murder is the result of a long-standing feud. The victim's cause of death has not been released, but police did detain 2 men for questioning and have identified 2 suspects. A Billings woman appeared in court today to admit she embezzled close to $400,000 from her employer. Jennifer Thaw pleaded guilty in U.S. District Court in Billings to 4 counts of wire fraud. Thaw was employed with J&S Recovery Incorporated in Billings as a comptroller last July when the money was stolen. Court documents allege Thaw stole $390,000 by transferring the funds from her employer to her personal account. Thaw was released today pending sentencing. A partial roof collapse in January left Linderman gymnasium in Polson out of service, and school leaders are anxious to begin repairs. A low protective barrier along the edge of a roof gave way from the weight of heavy snow buildup. The facility is a hub for the community and hosts a majority of high school athletics. The damage forced school leaders to reschedule games and other activities for the remainder of the school year. The school has hired an engineering firm and a construction manager that will work together on a reconstruction plan. Turning now to the weather scene with Ed McIntosh. We're just a week out from Easter, but we still have cold temperatures in the future.
That's for sure. Maybe a little bubble of warmer air, but we wanted to take you out to this weekend and beyond. If you have travel plans as we get closer to the weekend, the overall trend right now is running about 10 to 15 degrees colder than average in the short term, but we could be very chilly by the time we start getting into the weekend, especially across the eastern plains, and then trending even cooler across the western portion of the state. And while that might be good news as far as slowing down our snow melt and the possibility of flooding, we're also trending wetter across Montana, Wyoming, and into the Dakotas. In fact, that's going to be the story across much of the northern portion of the United States. More on the weather coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks, Ed. We'll check back in. Well, some good news when it comes to the flu season. Montana health officials say flu activity is decreasing across the state. Last Friday, 487 new cases were reported from the previous week. That's about 40% less than the number of cases seen at the end of January and beginning of February when the season peaked. More than 8,600 cases have been reported since last September, including 800 hospitalizations and 41 deaths. Flu activity across the state is also no longer classified as widespread. Yellowstone, Flathead, and Cascade counties reported the highest numbers of new cases over the last 2 weeks. Funding for a proposed veterans home in Butte gets the stamp of approval. Senator John Tester announced Thursday the $8 million in federal funding needed for the facility is included in a bill that will go to fund veterans homes across the country. Tester says the funding allows Montana to contribute another $4 million towards the project. The 60-bed facility, which has been in the works for 10 years already, will be located on land off Continental Drive. Officials say plans for the veterans home are already complete, but it could take another 2 years to get the facility up and running. The Centers for Disease Control reports 1 in 68 children born in the U.S. has autism. Dr. Jed Baker, the director of the Social Skills Training Program, spoke on the issue at the 6th Annual Autism Awareness Conference in Great Falls this weekend. Hundreds of parents, teachers, and health professionals from across the state listened in on Baker's lesson. He focused on understanding challenging behavior, managing frustration and anxiety, and teaching social skills. The event, hosted by Friends of Autism Great Falls, touched on points like interventions and resources for kids with disabilities.
Interventions are not easy. It's not a quick fix. It's not a one-day event that you're going to be able to come to and solve all the problems, but it's a long-term goal. It's a marathon. It's a long race that takes time and energy, and you just have to hang in there.
Friends of Autism Great Falls will hold a free showing of Neurotypical, a documentary on autism, at CMR High School in April. Still ahead on the noon news, sparks fly after an adult film star tells all about an alleged affair with President Trump. Details when we come back. But first, Ed has our weather forecast. Stay with us.
You're watching MTN News with Aja Goare, Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh, and farm and ranch news from the Northern Egg Network. This is